Nick Brana, National Chair of the People's Party. I'm here with good friend of the show, Jimmy Dore. And we are here because 2 years ago, on about this exact date, we got this crazy idea into our heads, Jimmy and Malcolm, and super credit to Malcolm for this, got this crazy idea that, hey, the Democrats and Bernie had just campaigned on, let's elect Joe Biden and then push him to the left. And we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we just put Medicare for All issue front and center during two Bernie campaigns and the 5 years in between. And so there was this crazy idea that Jimmy and Malcolm came up with that was, hey, why don't we use the leverage of the fact that the Democrats only have like 4 or 5 extra votes above the majority to force the vote for Medicare for All? That was 2 years ago. Here we are. Of course, fucking shit libs that they all are chose not to do it. So here we are 2 years later, and there's a chorus of people on the left, for Christ's sake, who said, oh, it can't be done. It shouldn't be done. It's going to fail, whatever. Jimmy, what do you have to say to them in the context of what's happened over the last 3 days with McCarthy?
Well, what's actually sad is you see all the press conferences, even though the D.C. bureau chief of The Intercept, Ryan Grimm, lied when he said during Force the Vote that if they did it, it would get zero coverage. Well, look at the coverage. It's ubiquitous. It's wall-to-wall coverage for the right wing doing exactly what the left wing is too afraid to do, which is use their leverage and demand concessions for their vote for the Speaker of the House. And here we are on a 12th vote. And it just shows, and they're making lots of concessions, so they're getting things. So the latest is that they're going to cut $75 billion from the defense budget. That's I just saw a headline from Bloomberg News on that. So what I had to say to all those people is, how does it feel to be exposed as a complete 100% fraud? Because that's what this is doing. What Matt Gaetz and the right wing of the Republican Party is doing is called democracy. Is called politics 101. It's called standing on the floor. What I really got excited about was I saw Matt Gaetz, who I disagree with on many things, agree with on a few things, stand on the floor of the House and say that both parties are corrupted to big money. It was kind of exhilarated. I don't know if you saw that, but that's exactly the kind of thing we thought that the squad was going to be doing in the Justice Democrats, and why we were all excited to elect them, but they never did that, and they still won't do it. In fact, right now, when the right wing is embarrassing them and showing them how to do it, how to use leverage, they're all bragging. Everybody in the squad is bragging about how they're unified in the Democratic Party, and they're all voting for Hakeem Jeffries, a guy who hates the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So, and not only hates them, but has campaigned against them, organized against them. So that's what I have to say to those people. They're all being outed. So this is just another nail in the coffin of the Democratic Party. So they're going to have to come up with a bigger boogeyman, I guess, next time than Trump, fascism, racism, white supremacy. What can they be for? I don't know what else they can be running against next time. They can't run against baby killers.
One of the things that hit me as I was seeing all this, Jimmy, was our demands really were nothing. They were nothing. We demanded nothing compared to what they're demanding. They're demanding like structural changes to the way the House works, the ability to remove McCarthy at any minute, a third of the committee assignments. Remember how AOC said it was about the committee assignments? Well, guess what? They're going to get a third of the committee assignments because they did this. I remember this too. In the middle of Force the Vote, like in December of 2020, when we were pressuring AOC and all the squad members to actually take this stand, in the middle of that, and like Justin Jackson had just gone back and forth, with AOC and had got her on the record and exposed just all the bullshit. She had no excuse. She made like 5 different excuses just in that thread. Say we're saving our powder for $15 minimum wage, whatever. And I remember how right at that time, they were saying one of their excuses was, we're doing this for the committee assignments. But Nancy Pelosi, right at that time, kicked AOC off of a committee right when we were pressuring them and while AOC was rebuking us. And I thought, wow, what a naked display of power and of disregard for AOC and the progressives. That while she is justifying her opposition to force the vote, taking the establishment position, she's justifying that in the committee assignments that they're going to get. Right in the middle of that, Nancy Pelosi walks right up to her and says, "You're not getting that committee anymore."
That's it. So that's the irony. So their whole thing is, well, now there are people who are lying, trying to say that the squad was actually using some kind of strategy. We saw Nina Turner do that, right? Nina Turner went on to famously lie and run interference for the squad by saying that they have a strategy and that people like Jimmy Dore doesn't know about a strategy, even though we know now they didn't have a strategy. And she remember she said that it's about a strategy. Well, where's their fucking strategy, you liar? And you think you might be able to bullshit your fucking anyway. So yeah, so there was never any strategy, and all those people were gaslighting everybody. And here we are. I got it. It doesn't feel good though, because what made me think, honest, yesterday when it was wall to wall coverage of this, I was like, just imagine what this would have done for Medicare for All had they been talking about Medicare for All wall to wall on national television when the majority of Americans are for Medicare for All. And how are you going to make these people seem like crazies if they're doing this to try to get a vote on Medicare for All in the middle of a pandemic? It would make them heroes. So, and they still wouldn't do it, and that's why they couldn't do it. So I wonder what they got out of it. I know Bush got a book deal. I wonder what everybody else got out of it. So they got something for sure. That wasn't
Right.
committee assignments. Who knows what it was? Was it more bookings on Rachel Maddow? I don't know what it was, but whenever they talk to media that isn't MSNBC or CNN, they go right to The Intercept and Ryan Grimm, and they never get it. They never get pushback on it. So, hey, is there a link for this? I could tweet it out. Did you tweet out a link for this?
Yeah, there is. You can tweet it out from the People's Party. It's streaming there, so you can go to our Twitter and you can tweet that.
Oh, okay. The People's Party. Let me go to there.
Yeah, for sure. And gosh, I thought I remember. Okay, so there were all these people. Remember who were just accusing us. Some of our favorite people, Ryan Grimm, who were accusing us of disingenuously somehow pushing for Medicare for all. I don't know how the fuck you do that, but I get that's it's. I guess it's up to people at the Intercept to get paid by multiple billionaires to come up with how you do that. But I remember right as the votes were coming in, you and I were texting, and there was a moment where AOC she voted president, and then Cori
Yeah.
Bush also voted president, and you sent me this message, like, holy shit, did we win? And I was thinking the same thing, like, are they actually gonna do something? And then of course they just immediately capitulated, didn't get anything. And then there were people who held out. There were people who held out
Like,
right away. I remember, like 24 hours later. So we obviously said, this is a preview of the next 2 years. This shows you that the progressives are completely controlled by the establishment. They're not going to fight for you. We predicted it. $15 minimum wage, they didn't fight for that. They didn't fight for public option. They didn't fight against the military industrial complex. Unbelievably, like you're saying, they're actually going to cut the military industrial budget as a part of the agreement, or they're going to push for that. The Democrats aren't going to allow that. The Democrats are going to, in the Senate, and Biden are going to veto that, obviously. So they didn't get anything except for supposedly, I guess, just being in the good graces of Nancy Pelosi and the party, because they seem to have this view that causing a ruckus, bringing the ruckus to Washington, D.C., which is supposedly what they went there to do, is a bad thing. And that's why now you have Jamal Bowman tweeting, these kinds of celebrations of the multiple votes. But what they don't get, or what they don't want to get, is that these Republicans who stood up against McCarthy and made all of these demands, those people are folk heroes. They're heroes for doing that. And they would have been heroes themselves if they would have done it for a policy as popular as Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic.
The cowardice that revealed, that it was always a fake, that they never meant it. None of them, especially Pramila Jayapal, never meant it. She is, you want to look at what the enemy looks like, it's Pramila Jayapal. Because now, uh, instead of having the establishment media in the entire country talking about Medicare for all nonstop for weeks on end, which is what they could have done, and we could have got something. Now it's over a decade away now. Medicare. I mean, what? How are they going to get? It's just, it seems crazy, right? So, I mean, if Joe Biden runs, they ain't going to get it because he promised to veto it. So that's 4 more years of not getting it, right? And that it's just, it's it's criminal what they did, and the fact that there's nobody in the media to hold them accountable, right? The Young Turks won't hold him accountable. Breaking Points, Rachel Crystal, uh, and they won't hold them. They're making excuses for them right now. They're saying that, well, she said, I saw that Crystal said that now. This proves that that their strategy was proven wrong of playing an inside game, as if they just made a bad call instead of what they actually did, which was fucking lie to us. They never intended to ever use their leverage. It wasn't a bad call. They didn't have another strategy. They weren't playing an inside game. They were rolling over. And now people like Crystal Ball is out there lying for them, which is what her, and it was weird. They were on board for Forced to Vote tepidly. And then her and Kyle immediately started making excuses for the squad immediately after that. So they must have got a phone call too. Remember how Brianna Joy Gray, she talked about how there was a phone call that went out because people with MSNBC contracts and TYT and Cenk Uygur, they were on board for Forced to Vote. And then a phone call went out, and then they all had to find a rate, like Ryan Grimm and David Sirota lied and said that it was McCarthy could become speaker. So they had to find a reason to undermine Forced to Vote. And so that's what happened. So again, it's there. Shama Sawant, which is a real socialist. She's got real elected power, and she uses it, and she uses her leverage. And what does she say? That she says that for progressives, the road inside the Democratic Party leads to a graveyard. And you're seeing it. I mean, you're allowed to dissent if you're in the Republican Party. You're not allowed to dissent in the Democratic Party. And so none of them do it. They're a bunch of cowards, nutless wonders, spineless, go-along tools. And not only, it would be one thing if they just went along, but it's another thing that they then gaslight their followers and lie to them and have them turn on actual activists. Like when AOC said that I was committing violence against her for wanting people to hold her accountable for not doing what she campaigned on, that was violence. So they go the extra step. They're not only just cowards and go-alongs, but they're actively trying to commit evil and make people afraid to hold their feet to the fire.
I remember that. That was just after the town hall, which the town hall was amazing. You know, we had Dr. Cornel West, we had Brianna Joy Gray, Katie Halper, Justin Jackson, we had Savage Joy, we had Scott Desnoyers. It was a powerful event. And then I remember the only thing that the liberals wanted to talk about the next day, you know, was the after show. The after show where you cursed out AOC for denying millions of people health care, something that she deserves. And then that was where she came and accused you and everybody of violence, as if that's violence, you know? And we just saw Obama do the same thing when he tried to tone police the protesters against nuclear war from the Schiller Institute, you know? And it's amazing to watch the squad and the progressives just that they consider that words are violence, as opposed to denying people health care
and voting to give $100 billion to Nazis in Ukraine. I guess that's not violence.
Right. Exactly. You know, like about 6-8 months after Force the Vote in 2001, I mean 2021, I went to the first night of the squad while they were occupying the steps of the Capitol you know. And it was the first night that Cori Bush went out there, and there were 3 of them. And they, yeah, and I got into like a half hour, 45-minute argument with them. I was largely over forced the vote, and they lied to my face. They lied to my face saying it was someone else's bill. You know, we can't push it because it's someone else's bill. You know, and so this has nothing to do with what we were asking you to do, and you know that. You're lying about it. And
Well,
then I told Max about it. He came back the next day and got him on camera saying the same thing.
Well, I would just like to point to you to this tweet, and I don't know if you can see this, but can you read that?
Yes.
What does it
Yes,
say?
Ilhan Omar. Yes, we can. With a slim Dem majority in the next Congress, anything will be possible. It will literally take 5 courageous progressive members to get concessions on progressive policies. That is December 24th, 2020. She's right. She was right. She was right.
She was 100% right, and now the right wing is proving that strategy that she outlined right there, and that they were unwilling to institute, including her. She tweeted that in December of 20. Let's see, when was that? She tweeted that in December of 2020.
That was like a week before the vote.
A week
She did
before.
a week before the vote. A week before the vote.
And then did an intern in her office get a hold of her Twitter account for 5 seconds and tweet that out to make her look bad? Or does she really tweet that and she really knows that she's 100% sellout? She just
Must have
wanted to
been
say,
the It must have been the same intern that sent the letter, the
ah,
30-person letter against
yeah,
Ukraine.
yeah, that same person. Yeah.
Well, that
Anyway,
used to be me. I went to work for the Democratic Party. I thought, hey, these people believe in something. And then, I found out the hard way also, no, they don't. They're just the same warmongering, anti-union, anti-worker, oligarch party as the Republican Party.
did you see Bernie Sanders voted against the defense bill? And
Yes.
after he voted for $100 billion to send to Nazis in Ukraine, he makes a performative vote against the bill. You could have put a hold on the bill, Bernie. You could have made a stink. Why don't you put a hold on the bill and then call a press conference and tell everybody what's wrong with the corruption inside fucking a bill that's got more billions of dollars in it than President Corruption even asked for? He won't do shit. He won't do a fucking thing. He won't ever stand up against the Democratic Party. Bernie didn't make the Democrats pay a price for cheating everybody, for cheating him and the rest of the progressives. He won't do that. He'll never do anything. It's all fucking bullshit. It is amazing.
Bernie still hasn't admitted that he was cheated. Like you said, in the Democratic primary, everybody else has admitted it. Donna Brazil's admitted it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Tom, what was it, Perez? And so all of these former heads of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz was fired over it. A whole bunch of other DNC staffers were fired over it. And I remember it was so awkward when Donna Brazil came out with her book, and everybody, yeah, that's right. And everybody was like, okay, Bernie, what are you going to say now? And it was just crickets. And then he just sent some email about some different thing, just went on as if it hadn't happened. And so guess what? They cheated you again 4 years later, you idiot. What did you expect? You rewarded them for cheating you. So of course they were going to cheat you a second time.
You could count on it. I mean, it's almost like that's what Bernie's job was there for. It's almost like he was there to get cheated again and to then have all his progressives go vote for the biggest, most corrupt Wall Street puppet in the fucking race. That's the irony. Like the worst guy won, the guy who's taken the most fucking money from corporate Wall Street, the biggest warmonger, the biggest liar, the biggest racist in that race was Joe Biden. And Bernie Sanders ends up telling progressives to vote for him because he's his good friend. Because Bernie Sanders sucks a red cock. What I would say, no, Bernie Sanders sucks blue cocks because blue cocks are full of liberty. Red cock, Trump's cock, is the most corrupt cock in the history of cocks. And Joe Biden's cock is going to give us Medicare for all. So anyway, he's just a clown now. Bernie's just been revealed as another clown, another prop. He's necessary for the establishment. They need to have him there to fucking keep people from revolting. He's keeping people from actually revolting. He's keeping
Yes.
people inside an anti-worker, pro-war party. That's what Bernie's doing.
He is. He is.
He's not an
And
independent. He's not a fucking independent. And man, did that lose me a lot of friends and followers. Just as many friends as followers as I lost when I wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton, I lost when I started telling the truth about Bernie Sanders. But that's why I do the show I do. Uh, I was already a full-time comedian, didn't need to be doing a YouTube show. I was having a good time as a comedian. And so the reason why I'm doing this is because I wanted to tell the truth and be authentic. And so I'm going to keep being authentic and telling you the truth, no matter who it's about, especially if it's about someone on the left who's supposed to be sharing our values. And when Bernie Sanders stabs us in the front, I'm going to let everybody know.
exactly, exactly. Um, that gets to something I wanted to ask you. I think that whether you like it or not, you are a populist leader in this movement. You are a leader in this country, and I wonder, how do you see yourself? How do you see your role in that? I don't think because I don't think you ever asked for it, but at the same time, I think that often the leaders that never asked for it and that never sought, that kind of role are often the best ones, because the ones that seek it out are the AOCs. It's the Ilhan Omars. It's the people who do it for all the wrong reasons. But the people who are reluctant about it, as I think you've been, as a friend, how do you see yourself, like in that role, and what does it mean to you?
No, it's sad because the people who are supposed to be standing up against authoritarianism, people who are supposed to be standing up against war aren't. It's sad. I mean, it was sad to see even a guy like Chomsky, who was a hero of mine, go down the COVID a rabbit hole of repeating big pharma propaganda and dividing our country and demonizing people for questioning establishment bullshit. Like when people, and so that was sad to see. So the reason why I'm in the position I am isn't because I'm some kind of a leader or because I'm some kind of a genius or a visionary. The reason is because the people who are supposed to be standing up fucking aren't. And even Chomsky, again, even around forced to vote, he sided with the establishment, which raises all kinds of red flags and questions about Chomsky. We all look the other way when he tells us to vote Democrat every 4 years, pretending that Joe Biden was less of a warmonger than Donald Trump, which was he was pretending. And now he agrees, but he still won't apologize. And he still won't apologize for demonizing the unvaxxed and telling them that they should be isolated, put in camps, and starved, which is what he said. So that shows a lack of character. So that the reason why I'm in the position I'm in is because people who are supposed to have character, dignity, and backbone and clarity of lefty politics don't, like Joe Chomsky. The two biggest issues in the last 2 years, he's totally fucking fallen down on. And so it's left to assholes like me, right? It's left to a pothead comedian to talk and tell the truth about certain things, and it's left to people like Joe Rogan to tell the truth about it and have the courage to stick his chin out. And he was fucking right. And of course, the people who were demonizing him were taking big pharma money to lie. Of course, like they lied about ivermectin. They lied about masks. They lied about transmission and contraction. They lied about every fucking thing to do with COVID. And that's why it comes on the shoulders of someone like me.
Exactly. And it's amazing because there is this huge faction of kind of the traditional left that supposedly, seemingly, just does not want to communicate with anyone in the right, doesn't want to work with anyone in the right, anybody who was a Trump supporter. Apparently they never. It's hilarious because oftentimes these are like the DSA people. These are the socialists. But apparently they never read a word of Marx, because Marx talks about organizing along class
Class
lines.
lines.
Exactly. So where are these people who are like this cancel culture left, that was all just trumping the mandates, was just celebrating the civil liberties that were being lost, as a result of that are cheering on this war in Ukraine. Like, that's what's become of so much of the left. And there's this been, especially since Forced the Vote, I've seen this kind of bifurcation in the left of that group, that wants to remain in their irrelevant silo, talking to themselves, for eternity. And then there is the populist left, which actually believes in organizing along class lines, and that these left-right labels are no longer really how relevant. They're no longer how you describe society. It really is the vast majority of people against this tiny group of elites, especially this military industrial deep state of elites who are trying to maintain American hegemony abroad. And as a result of growing resistance in the United States to their policies, and growing resistance to the fact that people are so poor in this country, 80% of people live paycheck to paycheck in this country, they're taking their civil liberties, they're banning people from social media who are critics of the war, who are critics of the vaccine policies, any kind of critics, whether it's left or right, it doesn't matter. Anyone who is a critic of the machine gets banned.
Well, I was told when I worked at the Young Turks, it was just going to be Alex Jones. And I said, of course, it's not just going to be Alex Jones, you fucking morons. This is how they started. And of course, look, it went from Alex Jones to the leading doctors and scientists in their fields during COVID, and to went to ex-presidents of the United States, to former, it's just crazy. Everybody, journalists, truth tellers, doctors, scientists, presidents, they ban fucking anybody who's a threat to the establishment. That's what happens.
And now we know that, of course, the government and the FBI are involved in that. They're intimately involved in policing speech, in policing free speech in the digital town square, and this brings up something else that we're doing now. So 2 years ago, we did Force the Vote. Now we are getting together with people who are in the Libertarian Party, people who are on the right, people who are on the left, people who are socialists, people who are communists, and we are getting together in Washington, D.C. We're going to rage against the war machine, February 19th, Lincoln Memorial, and then we're going to march to the White House after we rally there. We're bringing together people from across the ideological spectrum, because opposing the war and opposing the deep state is not a left or right issue. These are the people who are imposing the order that is subjugating all of us in this country, liquidating our freedoms, sending $110 billion to Ukraine on top of the $800 billion of the military budget already. And so we're going there. Then we're going to finish off with a march to the White House. And I wonder, Jimmy, what you have to say about that.
Well, that'll be exciting. There really hasn't been a real anti-war movement in this country. And if sending $100 billion directly to the pockets of weapons manufacturers and corrupt politicians in Ukraine, while we don't send $100 billion to the cities of the United States where there are people sleeping under every bridge, which would have ended homelessness 3 times over, that $100 billion. And if that doesn't get people excited to go protest, I don't know what will, but I think people will be excited to protest. And there's a lot of people coming together around this. And people are sick and tired of this fucking endless war. Again, like I said, Barack Obama was not a departure from George Bush. He took us from 2 wars to 7. And he dropped more bombs than George Bush. And he had a drone program that killed 90% innocent people. So Barack Obama, whenever you see somebody go into a mall and shoot people up, or wherever they go, into a post office, and that's what Barack Obama was doing on a daily basis. He was just going murdering innocent people. People don't look at it like that, but that's exactly what it was. So yes, I think it's great that we're doing this. We're going to have an anti-war rally, and I think there's a lot more people who are anti-war than you think. And we're going to find that out.
There are, I think so. And I'm very excited too. I spoke to George Galloway just on Wednesday, and they're doing a No to NATO kind of partner event to ours, which is super exciting. Claire Daly, Mick Wallace is going to be at theirs. Which is great. And so it's becoming international. George Galloway, the Workers' Party, which is hosting the action over in London, which is going to be a week after ours, February 25th. They're all for making it international. Hopefully, Claire Daly and Mick Wallace, the MEPs who are so amazing in Europe, will be also, because that's what we need, because we are continuously coming closer and closer to the edge of nuclear war, because these lunatics who run the Pentagon and who run the CIA have not set any kind of limit, despite the fact they just keep pouring weapons and money into Ukraine, despite the fact that Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is telling them we need to negotiate an end to this war. Jens Stoltenberg is saying this is risking becoming a direct war between the United States and Russia and NATO, and that of course means a nuclear war. And I think terrifyingly is the possibility that, Ukraine is going to lose. Scott Ritter, Aaron Mate, so many people who are so knowledgeable about this war, Colonel Douglas McGregor, they talk about how it is inevitable. Ukraine is going to lose. They are being destroyed on the battlefield thanks to the Zelensky regime. And then when that happens, or when the Russian offensive happens, the deep state in this country, the neocons in this country, they're going to face a choice. Either they're going to have to accept the fact that we are going into a new multipolar world order. You have the rise of the BRICS. It's not like the time after World War II, where the US had 50% of global GDP and the only country with nukes and the biggest military. It's not that time. They're either going to have to accept the multipolar world, or they're going to do what they're already talking about on the Sunday shows. Their CIA errand boy, David Petraeus, is out there talking about a potential coalition of the willing, going in with Polish forces, Romanian forces, American forces, and invading Ukraine from the West to get into direct conflict with Russian soldiers. This is insane. That's in nuclear war policy. And yet that is what these people believe. Even Henry Kissinger is telling them, back off.
People don't realize how, everything that we were told to fear about Donald Trump is coming true under Joe Biden for sure. And of course, he's not the one making these decisions. He's demented. So he's taking orders, and who's he taking orders from? His billionaire handlers. That's who he's taking from. Right now, it's inside Wall Street and inside the fossil fuel companies. So they want to sell more liquefied natural gas to Europe, and that's what this is all about. It's what it's always been about. And when he was winding down the war in Afghanistan, that 20-year upward transfer of funds from the U.S. Treasury to the international security state, that's all that was. When he was allowed to end that, I asked the question, why is he being allowed to end this war, right? Because again, Joe Biden doesn't make any decisions. And the reason why is because they knew they had this another war right in the chamber, and that they could actually spend more money on, which is what they're doing. So they went and they started Ukraine war. That's why he was allowed to pull out of Afghanistan. And I asked that question in real time on my show. And other people are like, isn't it great? Oh yeah, no, he's not. And so that's what this is about. And they're willing to, again, they've already killed a couple of 100,000 people in this war. And what is this war about? It's about an economic war. It's about trying to put a hurt on Russia economically for corporations in the United States, so we can sell more liquefied natural gas to Europe. Now, right now, Russia provides 40% of the energy to Europe, and we wanted a part of that. And the way we did it was this. So we blew up their pipeline, Nord Stream pipeline, and here we are coming in. Oh, the United States is going to fulfill your liquefied natural gas. Oh, it's exactly what we said at the beginning of the fucking war, again, on my show. And that's not because I'm a genius or brilliant. It's because I have a bullshit detector and I'm not paid to say the opposite. So it's amazing to see other people who are considered on the left go along with these wars. It's crazy. Of course, the Intercept is going to be for it. They're for all wars. The Squad is for it. They do whatever the Democratic donors tell them to do. And of course, the Young Turks are for it because they're always pro-war, because they take money from big tech and big DNC donors and billionaire money. And of course, anybody with an MSNBC contract is going to be for the war. So that's where we're left, and it really is. We really are on the brink of nuclear war, and we really did provoke this war. We
Yeah.
did everything we could to provoke this war, and that never gets talked about. There's already a peace agreement. It's called the Minsk Accords. We should have just abided by that, which meant that Ukraine would stop bombing the shit out of the Russia-speaking people in the eastern part of Ukraine, which is what precipitated this war.
I mean, Russia's demand going back to February, which they made repeatedly to the United States, to Ukraine, they did everything they could to avoid this war. The US was escalating the war. We know now from Angela Merkel, that interview, that the Minsk agreement was just a stalling tactic. It was really always the US's plan, it's always the West's plan to bring to have a war with Russia, a direct war. That was always their plan. And so, but I want to ask you, Jimmy, because I had brought this up. I do want to bring us back to force the vote and get your reaction to some of the comments. Some of the comments that we have here, like Cenk Uygur. This was an opportunity, I thought, for the people who had been bullshitting about force the vote to really accept some responsibility and say, wow, upon seeing what's happened with the Republican Party and the fight and how much attention it's brought to their demands and how much higher their demands are than what we demanded of a floor vote on Medicare for all, that this would have been an opportunity for them to say, you know what, that would have been a good idea. Maybe let me admit that.
To force to vote children. 80%, 86% of his audience was for force to vote. They did and I want to say thank you to Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur, the two of the dumbest people in all of media. They conducted a poll of their own paying members to ask them if they supported force to vote. What the fuck do you think they're going to say? 9 out of 10 of them said yes, they supported it. And he's out there now because he's so embarrassed that he's been revealed as a fraud over forced to vote. He's now insulting his own audience. He's calling them children, forced to vote children. That's 9 out of the 10 out of the people out of it. So that's what a corporate shill looks like. That's why it's so easy to make fun of people like Chuck Todd and Anderson Cooper and Jake Tapper and Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes, because they take their paycheck from corporations and they do exactly what the establishment wants them to do, and they never get out of line. And that's what this is about. That's Cenk. He gets his $24 million from right-wing DNC donors, and he knows where his next 24 million is coming from, and that's what this is about. He got the phone call. Brana Joy Gray talked about it. There was a phone call. All Cenk Uygur supported it. So did people with MSNBC contracts. A lot of people supported force to vote, and then there was a phone call that went out, according to Bernie Sanders' former press secretary, and they all changed their tune, and that's why they have to look like this. That's why they look like this. They have to bend themselves in pretzels, and now he's calling 9 out of the 10 of his own paying members, he's calling them children. So that's what it looks like when you get caught lying because you're a fucking bought shill. And that's what Cenk Uygur is. And anybody else who went against force to vote, they weren't doing it on good faith. They were doing it in bad faith. And that's why it's so easy for me to humiliate them.
It's another person who, it's amazing to me. Thank you, Sam Cedar, in your infinite stupidity, for admitting to all of us, to the world, that it was a phone call. That it was, that you got a phone call, that you didn't really do this of your own volition, and really that's what happened. Thanks so much for admitting that, because he was the one who said it on Brianna's show. And so, very much appreciate that, knowing how it works. Maybe you'll tell us who called you and who was calling everybody else, so we can get in touch with them. Here's our other favorite, Ryan Grimm. I'm begging people to stop pretending that Jimmy Dore invented the idea of using leverage in the year of our Lord 2021.
Can I just show that's what he's good at? He's good at changing the subject. No one's saying that.
Yes.
I never said I invented that. In fact, the reason why I felt I had solid ground to stand on when I presented force the vote was because it was in the DSA's handbook of doing that, to force a vote on Medicare for all. So I never said I invented it. And I said, I'll give anybody credit who wants to join me. I didn't want credit for it. I wanted it to happen. So that's what Ryan Grimm, who gets paid by 3 different billionaires, is now, he's out there. He discredited activists. He's been discrediting healthcare activists all along because he takes billionaire money to do so. And that's just another proof of it. There it is right there. And he says the criticism was always about the demand for a vote on the House floor that will lose by a 2. No, that's not. Of course, that's not it. Of course, he's lying. Again, he's lying and making things up. And if you scroll down, Brianna Joy Gray is going to own him right there. So he got on his own thing, he got 700 likes after 44,000 views. And she got 900 likes on her thing. But right underneath him, that's his fucking thread right there. Him underneath him, she got him. That's not true. 900. So there you go. So when we surfaced a large number of demands, the floor vote was just one of them. That's exactly right. To me, the floor vote on Medicare for all was the easiest ask. It was the smallest thing that you could ask for. I wanted them to ask for something. And they didn't ask for fucking anything. Ryan Grimm didn't tell them to ask for anything, and he still isn't pissed off at them for not asking for anything. He's still out there lying to protect them because he gets the access to them.
It was that the fact that the vote would have lost actually had nothing to do with it. It would have been worth it, like you said, just on the media alone. It would have been worth it, just on the amount of coverage that it would have gotten. Also the amount of there's a number of different policies. You showed on your show, you showed a tweet of AOC's where she was talking about how she proposed legislation. She proposed a bill that initially failed, but it got 90, co-sponsors. And then she proposed it again and got 140. So it was making progress. That's how legislation works. But they somehow forgot that. They somehow don't understand. No, of course they know that. They're pretending. They're just fucking lying to us and gaslighting us about this. They know how it works. They know that the coverage would have been worth it. They know that there would have been a debate in the middle of a pandemic about Medicare for all, a 70% policy that had just been elevated as one of the top political issues by the Bernie Sanders, 2 back-to-back Bernie Sanders campaigns. It would have been, and that alone would have made it a huge success. I wanted to show you this because, this is part of the force of a town hall that we held. And I wanted to show you and everybody a clip here from this because this really shows, a lot of people were saying, oh, Jimmy Dore, the typical bullshit about how you're a grifter, you weren't sincere in pushing for this, you had some kind of ulterior motive, whatever it is. But you had told me your own personal healthcare story and why this was so personal to you and Steph. And and I remember when we were talking back then in that December, I said you got to tell that story. You got to tell it at the town hall. People need to know. They need to hear it. They need to hear why this is so important to you. So I want to play this for everybody because to anybody who doubts your authenticity and the fact that the fact that you don't even tell this story, even more, is amazing, but it's part of what's so incredible about the way that you organize this. But I want everybody to hear it because it is so impactful and everybody needs to know, just like the stories that Justin Jackson had about his mom, the stories that Savage Joy and Scott Desnoyers had. Everybody has a story and you have yours. It's not hypothetical. It's even less abstract for you after what happened with the COVID vaccine and the way that you were injured. But I want to play this for everybody.
Okay, hang on. So it's awkward for me to watch myself tell the story. I'm going to go to the bathroom while you do this, okay?
Okay. All right, here's the story.
Move on, we can do that as well. But I think this is our last two people coming in.
None other than
that would be great.
Jimmy Dore and Steph, the miserable liberal.
Hello. So I guess we're just going to tell our story and why we feel the need to advocate for hashtag force the vote right now at this moment. And I just want to tell my own personal story because there's been a lot made about how people aren't professional or approved grassroots organizers. And so I shouldn't be allowed to do this. And people shouldn't listen to my concern about Medicare for all. And they're asking, what are your credentials for this? Well, I'll tell you real quick what got me on board for Medicare for all was I got sick, and I got sick in not in a normal way. I got sick in a way that was hard to diagnose. So my illness stretched out for over 3 to 4 years. And what happened was I would go to the doctor, and they would say you have this, and then they would prescribe something, and I would get sicker. And then 6 months would go by, and they would say, oh, you don't have that, you have something else. And they would give me another treatment, and 6 months would go by, and I'd get sicker. And this kept going on, and then they said, there's this guy, Dr. Sharp, you should go see him, Dr. Charles Sharp, he's the best guy, and he could fix you. Well, he didn't take my insurance, and by that time, I was already broke, right? We had health insurance. I mean, they just don't pay for stuff. They don't pay for MRIs and CT scans, and I had to have special different kind of tests that nobody else could get, and I had to go to special places to get them, and I had to pay for it all out of my pocket. And I know what it's like, right? And I know what it's like to walk into a doctor's office that you owe money to and not have any room left on your credit card and have them deny you service while you're dying. And you don't know what's happening. You don't even know what your illness is yet. All you know is that you're about to die. And all you know is that you just bankrupted yourself. And I bankrupted my wife. And we didn't know where to turn or what to do. And then one day I stepped off a step the wrong way, and my spine collapsed. I went from 5'10" to 5'7" like that. I had 6 vertebrae. So then I was like, hey, I'm just about ready to die. Maybe we should scrape together any kind of money we can and go see Dr. Sharp. So we did. And Dr. Sharp diagnosed me correctly within the first visit. And I had dead bone in my thigh at that time. I had dead bone in my spine. I had fractures all over my body, from my feet to my fingers to my neck to my ribs. I had broken bones all over my body, and I had dead bone in my hip and in my thigh, and I was supposed to get the Bo Jackson surgery. And Dr. Sharp sent me to the guy who invented that Bo Jackson surgery. Anyway, the long story short was, he told me to have to take bone out of my shin, put it into my thigh, and I wouldn't be able to step on my leg for 6 months. Now I was already hunched over and limping. I could barely move. But I could still sit down and do stand-up comedy, and if I didn't, I wouldn't have any money. So I would get pushed out into a comedy club, and I would be helped up onto the stage, and I would sit down and recite my act. And so doing that, I got it. I was offered a hour special on Comedy Central while I was dying. And I had to tell that doctor, I can't get this operation right now in my thigh because A, I don't have the money for it, and B, if I do it, I won't be able to do my Comedy Central special. And if I can't do that, I'm going to kill myself anyway. And he said, well, just so you know, Jimmy, at any moment, your thigh bone could snap. Any moment you step on stage, your thigh bone could snap, just so you know. And I said, well, that's a chance I got to take. So we went bankrupt, and I didn't get that surgery. But Dr. Sharp, after 4 years of being misdiagnosed, finally helped me get back onto the road to recovery. And I'm still recovering today. And I don't think anybody has to go through that. I don't think anybody, because they got sick, should have to face wanting to kill themselves, bankruptcy, financial destruction, and not knowing where to turn, and not being able to get the help you want because they don't take your insurance. It's a crazy situation we're into, and I hope that would give me the gravitas to be able to advocate for Medicare for all on behalf of me and my family and other people's families who go broke or are worrying about getting sick. Because everyone knows we're one unique illness away from being bankrupt and out on the street. Everybody knows that. And if they don't vote for this right now, they're telling you they don't care. They'd rather protect themselves and their career and their position inside a party than help the people who elected them, who are dying in the middle of a deadly pandemic and the worst economic crisis in our history. That's what's happening. And I know I was told that I'm not allowed to advocate for this because I'm not official. Well, I'm telling you that this story gives me the ground to stand on. And people who have the same story like me, who don't have time to go out and be a professional organizer, I'm speaking for them. I'm speaking for the people who go bankrupt. I'm speaking for the people who die every year. The 40-some thousand people a year who die because they don't have health care. I'm speaking for them. They don't have time to go out professionally organized. We're doing it for them. Because I don't think anybody should have to go through what I went through or what my wife went through ever in the richest country in the world. People who have worked all their lives every day shouldn't have to go through that. And when you have the power to do something about it, you should use your power. And if you don't use your power, shame on you. Steph, do you want to say something?
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
Jimmy.
I'm back. All right, so
I hope you heard some of that because that was nobody can hear that. Nobody can hear that. I don't give a fuck who you are. David Sirota, Ryan Grimm, Cenk Uygur, nobody can hear that and doubt the authenticity of that story. Because that's what people deal with in this country. I'm lucky to be healthy, but I have friends who suffer through the same thing. You're one of them. And you're right, what you said. It's not right. It's not right that anybody has to go through that in this country, and it is criminal, and it's made me furious, just like you, to see all of the attention that has been given to the Republicans that have actually stood up against their leadership. And knowing that the Democrats and the progressives had that in the palm of their hands, the ability to help thousands of people, millions of people in this country, and they didn't take it. It's infuriating.
So that, to me, that's the greatest misuse of power, is not using your power for good. And so they had the power to do something, just as much power as the right wing has right now, and you see what they're doing. So that's the biggest fail. Hey, there's an echo happening. Right? Do you have it on a setting? Maybe you should put it on a setting that takes out that. Okay, is that better? Yeah, that's better. So that's, to me, that's the thing that's actually the most maddening, is that they had the power and they were gaslighting and slandering and turning against healthcare activists and the people who helped get them elected, trying to lie to them, gaslight them into thinking that they didn't have the power. They had the power and they chose not to use it. And how did they get that power? We gave them the power. We went out and organized and we got them elected, and they had the power to do it, just like Matt Gaetz has the power right now, and they refuse to use it, which exposes the game, which is why I'm so hated by the Democratic Party. And I'm sure if the Twitter files, if I could look at them, I would find out that they had directives from the Democratic Party to de-rank Jimmy Dore and to make sure I never try all that stuff. So that's what makes me angry, and the people who apologize for them not using their power. But the game is up, Nick. Everybody sees it. There's a two-party duopoly. The game is over. The system is rigged and it's against you. Bernie Sanders and the squad are war pigs. They're just as disgusting as the rest of the right wing, because they are right wingers, because they're supporting a right wing, anti-worker, pro-Wall Street war pig fucking party to its teeth. And at the same time, they're lying about what they're doing, and they're calling anti-war activists bought and paid for, like they did to you when you went and protested Bernie Sanders and he said, "Who's paying you?" What a disgusting display, and what a horrible way to end your career, in complete servitude to the war machine, to the death machine, and to lying about it. That's where we're at. But I have to tell you, I have to jump because I have a 1 o'clock. So I have to go, but I want to say thanks for having me on. And I'll see you on February 19th in Washington, D.C. And I'll see everybody there for that anti-war rally. It's going to be a great thing. And we're getting a lot of people on board. February 19th, Washington, D.C. We'll see you there. Okay, Nick, take care. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, brother. All right. This is why we're fighting for what we're fighting for, whether it is Medicare for all, forced to vote, or whether it is ending these goddamn wars that kill so many people abroad, waste so many of our resources, liquidate our freedoms here. And this is why people who are daring to stand up and use the platforms that they have, like Jimmy Dore, like a lot of the people who are joining us, Garland Nixon, Medea Benjamin, David Swanson, so many others who are going to join us, are truly what we have to do and fighting for what we need. So thanks everybody for joining us. And like Jimmy said, we will see you at the Lincoln Memorial February 19th, where we're going to rage against the war machine and we're going to bring people left and right and across the political spectrum together to take back this country. See you there.